And hello, everybody. This is Thorn Mooney from Publishing Land, here to tell you that none of it is organic, everybody. All of it is part of marketing. We know what we're doing. Some of us better than others. I don't know what I'm doing, but like nobody's accidentally famous on things when they write books, everybody.
No,
Like
no.
follower counts are cultivated and they're cultivated in very specific documented ways.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's amazing the number of doors that start just magically opening for
mhm,
you once that,
yep,
like, not that you have a certain number of followers, but that they see that you're trending up. Like that suddenly you're showing up now on people's For You page or on the Instagram, like you're showing up on what is the that page where
the
you really kind
search
of
page or whatever.
yeah, that.
Not for you, but it is.
Yeah, it's the Instagram version of the For You page, like that search page or whatever. Like when like people that give people careers, they know when you start showing up on things.
Yep.
As I've started showing up on things in the last year, it's incredible the number of hey, we were just noticing you have a
Inter
severe lack of jewelry in your videos. Would you like some jewelry and like
yep.
$100? I was like, no,
Well,
no.
even like within probably our kind of realm, thinking about publishers, etc., the difference between how much help I'm getting to market The Witch's Path versus anything else I've ever written is leaps and bounds. And it's not because I'm a better writer now, everybody. Like, it's because I now have 12K followers, whereas I used to have 2K.
Yeah,
Like, that's just objectively the difference. And I
it
think we
is.
kind of have, and I'm saying all of these things, everybody, like, not as a Llewellyn author, but as somebody who also has a job at a different publishing
Uh-huh.
house. Like I work in publishing, and everybody like has this idea that, well, books become bestsellers because their content is amazing. And like
No.
everybody, like I'm thinking here about like Mariah Carey and Jessica Simpson
I
and all
was
these like
just
music.
thinking
You were thinking about
about
that, right?
okay, people don't understand the writing thing because
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of people just don't write. But everybody thinks they can sing in their car. Everybody thinks that they're a good
Yes.
singer in their car. And what I realized a billion years ago was, especially watching like not X Factor with The Voice,
Mm-hmm.
American Idol and stuff like that. There's a lot of Mariah Carey's out there. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not saying that to be facetious. I'm like, it's Mariah Carey is not a once in a lifetime talent. There's a lot of people around the world that apparently can sing like Mariah Carey,
And
if not
and
better.
Mariah Carey is great. This isn't
Mariah
a
Carey's
knock on
great,
Mariah Carey.
but
But we
she's
have
just
the
not the only one that can sing like that. It's
right, like
just a lot of luck, a lot of who you knew,
mhm.
a lot of all of it. I mean, yeah, there's getting discovered, but once you do that, I mean, like how many winners of American Idol have there been, and how many Kelly Clarksons are there?
Right.
Yeah, there's the luck of the opportunity, but then to stick around and to stay around and to get supported and stuff is like a whole other thing. There's a lot of calculation, there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make it look organic.
Yes, and a lot of that doesn't necessarily have to do with the person whose face is on the cover. I don't know, like I think about how calculated some of these efforts are. And I feel like when I use words like that, it makes it sound like it's bad or like I'm opposed to these things. And I'm not. I just wish that people had an understanding of them so that they sort of knew, first of all, what they're buying, what they're supporting. But also, I think it should be encouraging. Like you also have the Mariah Carey voice or whatever. Like she had all of these various kinds of opportunities thanks to whatever. I mean, people ask me about, I'm sure they ask you too, like, how do I
Yeah,
publish a witch book? How do I
yeah.
write a witch book? And on the one hand, all I did was go to Llewellyn's webpage, which has a submissions
Mm-hmm,
page and tells you exactly what they need. This is what
mm-hmm,
you should be in your proposal. And by the way, they want to know how big your platforms are because that matters
mm-hmm.
just as much, if not more, than what you're actually writing. Because they have copy editors and editors, like they can fix. what you're writing, right? Autotune
I
exists.
was gonna say there's
Autotune
auto-tune.
exists,
Yeah,
right?
auto-tune exists.
It's much more about like what you already have in place and what they can sell. So I
And
did all of those things. That's true. I wrote a proposal. They get a lot of proposals. The real reason, like I get to write rich books, is because like I had the resources to travel. I saved up and I went to PantheaCon. I made friends with other authors. I did a lot of these things very consciously, not because I'm like calculating like Ava Perón and the Madonna version, right? Like it's, but because like I have a music background and I have a publishing background, and like I know how things work.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you also can write a witch book. But
you
if you
can.
think that you're going to be like a famous witch author, your book is going to be well received purely on the merits of its content, you are wrong.
You're wrong.
You are wrong.
You are wrong. The reason that you like the authors that you like is because it's that Devil Wears Prada moment.
It sure is. I was just thinking about that.
You
It's
like the
Devil Wears
authors
Prada.
that you like because a small number of people decided that those were going to be the people that you liked.
Well, and since we're part of kind of like a religious movement, a cultural movement, like, isn't it just a coincidence that the way people identify as witches, the green witch, whatever, isn't it interesting that that always correlates to what's popular in publishing?
Yes, it's crazy.
Weird.
That's
It's
a book
crazy.
title. Oh, I'm
What a
looking for a green witchcraft. There's a book title called that. Isn't that funny?
right. Isn't that just a coincidence that the
Yeah.
way the community, like what you think in your soul is your path,
Yeah.
also correlates to the best-selling books on the market?
It's bizarre. It's
Weird.
and it's I don't know. There's a more cynical part of me that looks and says, well, and then you look at people's platforms, people that also sell books and people that also sell classes and things like that, and how they also sort of transform themselves every few years to keep up with a trend. You know, it's
and I don't think that that's nefarious. I'm not here to tell you that it's wrong, but I am here to say that those are things that we need to weigh, like as discerning people making choices.
There is just a bit of discernment there on the part of the reader and the seeker, because this isn't as much as it, and you go, this is an author on author thing. So you go really well into it in your book, which is delightful, The Witch's Path.
Yours here.
Thank you. You know, and I think we both sort of talk about this, about how intertwined witchcraft and magical spirituality is intertwined with like wellness trends and exercise and live well, and you know, whatever the hell Gwyneth Paltrow's doing this weekend or whatever. Like it's just it's very intertwined there. So it's easy to sort of get it confused with wellness and get it confused with sort of a mainstream thing. It's easy to get lost in the commodification of it.
Well, even so, I'm sitting here. I just received the new hardback of Penzak's Inner Temple. I'm like, what's the category on the back? Mind, body, spirit. What does that mean, everybody?
I don't know, but
because it's about witchcraft.
Can I tell you that for a second, Zoom cut out, and what I heard was Pet Sex Inner Temple, and that was a very different book than what I thought you were about to show me. So
that is the chapter that was added for the anniversary edition. Everybody, you're welcome. Sorry, Christopher.
The Inner Temple.
Sorry for how I am.
So that's yes.
Oh no. But yeah, it's called Mind, Body, Spirit. And even like I had this kind of like New Year's resolution to myself where I was going to explore like new fitness routines. You know, the gym closed, right? So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And I decided that one of the things I was going to try was yoga, which I hadn't tried before. And I was like, okay, like there's got to be like an ethical kind of engaging way to do this that actually like fuels, like maybe I can do the double whammy and I can like improve my flexibility and be healthier and more mindful of my body while also complementing what I'm up to kind of as an occultist. Like there's got to be a way to not be an asshole doing those things.
It's a spiritual practice.
Exactly. So I'm looking around for like YouTube channels and whatever, but I really need some structure. If I can get into classes or with a teacher, I will. And a lot of yoga studios took things online this year. So cool, I'm on board. And don't you know that every single studio I looked at in the North Carolina area, I'm in the Raleigh area, they all also offer full moon rituals and crystal cleansing, whatever. And like you can go to class, but then you can also like watch as the instructor waves around a sage bundle and says something about the moon over some crystals, as though that is a health practice. How fascinating.
It is interesting. And that's one of the questions I think that both of us sort of challenge the reader on is there a version of is there a version of magical witchcraft based spirituality that you can practice that removes classism, that removes the economy of it all, that removes the bastardization of multiple other practices and sincerely held religious beliefs of living religions around the world? Is there a version of that that exists, and can you practice it? And you're shaking your head. The answer to a lot of it is, I mean, there's no, because there's a lot of the answer to a lot of it is there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, right? I mean, there's no harmless consumption. But on the other hand, one can at least be a little bit more conscious of what they're doing and why they're doing it, and ask themselves whether or not it's worth continuing to do, I think.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think that's true. This idea that what do you do living in a capitalistic system? I think that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the other part of it is even more foundational than that. Pierre Bourdieu and before him, others wrote about the concept of habitus, this idea that you are a conglomeration, that's not the word I want, an amalgamation of who you're born to, what region you're born in, how much money you had, where you went to school, like all of that stuff makes you who you are. You have a habitus,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you don't just get to put that down. And so at some point, I can only be conscious of so many things.
Sure.
Like I'm trapped in a body. I have
Sure.
a particular background. My language limits me. There's never going to be a moment where I am not this body of parts, like literally
it's
and
that meme
abstractly.
that goes around every couple of years of, I make my barbecue sandwiches this way because an ex-girlfriend's mom that I, dated in high school made barbecue sandwiches this way. And that's now the way that I do it. And this is the, you pick things up and things just become an intrinsic part of you, and you almost,
and it's unconscious.
Yeah. And until, you do them that way and you remember why you do them that way, until you get to the point where you do it and you kind of forget why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it only takes 1 or 2 generations for the people doing it to have completely forgotten why they ever did it.
Exactly.
My comparative religious philosophy teacher, when he was talking about, I think we were doing a unit on Buddhism, but it was just a good story that applies to a lot of things. So there was a Zen Buddhist master, whatever. It's a complicated story, but the crux of it is, he had a cat, and before he led meditation for the day, he would tie his cat up outside so that it would not bother him whenever he was like, he put it on a leash or whatever. Maybe it was a dog, I don't remember. He had a pet, it was tied up outside.
Go with a cat.
You get where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he goes in, leads ritual. This goes on for many years. Well, the pet dies, gets a new pet, continues the practice. Every day, again, right before ritual, goes, ties the pet up outside, goes and leads ritual. Well, eventually the master dies, a new master ascends and continues the practice before the practice, yada, yada. Well, one day the pet dies and everyone freaks out, and all of the adherents, the adepts go, well, we can't do ritual because there's no cat.
Yep.
There's no cat to tie up outside. Why do we need the cat? I'm sure I'm really screwing that story up, but you get what I'm saying.
Get it,
yes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We do things because, the guy just had a pet and he didn't want the pet bothering him while he was meditating. So he ties it up outside while they're meditating. But then it becomes a thing that you think you need the pet tied up outside in order to meditate. And it only takes 1 or 2 generations for these kinds of practices to lose their original context and meaning that could have been nothing. It actually, I thought a lot about that in reading your chapter on devotion, which
Have we
felt like a
officially
personal
started?
attack.
Did it really? Oh,
It
good.
did. I was like, oh, this is the book. Oh, this. Oh man.
Mhm.
Oh
I
boy.
I feel like I'm gonna make people mad with that chapter.
No, not at all. But I love the
Okay.
line. I highlighted it. You must locate the core of your craft and do the work that it requires. My dear friend Velma Nightshade always said, do the stuff. But I feel like this line just really takes it one step further and asks you to do some asking of why you're doing things and what is important about those things. There's some discernment inside of this statement that I loved. I loved.
Well,
You must
something.
locate the core of your craft. And obviously, there's a lot more context around the sentiment of like consciously really examining your craft, the purpose of your craft, why you're here, what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're hoping to accomplish, and what is the core of that attempt to accomplish something, and then do the work that requires. And I just want to know, why are you attacking me in your book?
Because I really just don't like you. Um, so that whole thing, I've really sat with this a lot in the last couple of years. In fact, I've got a Witch's Almanac article and a Llewellyn, I think it's the Witch's Companion, or maybe it's the Magical Almanac, essays coming out with other publications where I really wrestled with this thing very specifically because it really bothers me very deeply. And that's the notion that witchcraft is work. And we tell people all the time, you've got to do the work, or that person has done the work, or you're not doing the work. And nobody ever tells you what the fucking work is. What does that mean? Like, if you actually sit down and talk to people, they will tell you very different things. Some people think, oh, well, witchcraft is work because stuff is actually hard. You have to read and that's hard. And sometimes you have to get up at midnight and you have to do inconvenient rituals and that stuff is all hard. That's why it's work.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk to other people, when they say work, what they mean is like emotional labor, like therapy or
Sure.
like self-examination.
Sure.
And those are different kinds of work. But we throw that stuff around on the internet and we never tell people what it means or what we mean when we're using it. And then we get real mad when other people aren't doing the work. So I really wanted to wrestle with that. And kind of the conclusions that I reached are, oh, look, more Protestantism. Like, this is Max Weber, Protestant work ethic. Labor is holy. Like, fun is bad. One of the things I really appreciated about your book, you have this whole section where you talk about, like, let's talk about how witchcraft makes you look silly. And it's fun, right? And
oh, you have a very similar section. I was so glad to see that in there. It's this parallel. I love that parallel thought.
Yes.
Like, embrace the fact that you are going to look silly while you do this.
You are literally waving a magic stick, sir.
Yes.
Right? Like,
you are wearing a funny outfit. You have weird stuff drawn on you or drawn on a piece of paper. You are chanting around a fire. You are dancing a funny dance and it is offbeat.
And you're getting mad when other people think it's funny.
Yes.
It's funny.
It's funny. Good God, laugh at it. It's okay.
I think one of the reasons why we get so offended at laughter is because, well, witchcraft is work. I'm laboring over here, everybody. And I'm not saying that witchcraft isn't work. It is, but I think we need to examine what that means. And if we really want to change the minds of people who are coming in, then we need to tell them explicitly what that work is or what we mean when we use the term. It's no different than, like, did you have that teacher at some point in your life who, like, it's like they wouldn't explain things in class and then they would give you D's or whatever, and they never, the whole semester or term was about figuring out what they want because they won't tell you. We all have a story about a teacher like that, and I feel like that's 99% of what happens in witchcraft communities.
Yeah.
Is like, we're so mad at young people, we're so mad at teenagers and TikTok and whatever, but they need to do the research. They need to do the work. Well, if you don't, and I'm saying this as a teacher, like a licensed teacher, if you don't tell students what the expectation is and what the outcome should look like, you're not going to get it.
Well, and also, that's kind of been I don't know that. I wrote a book and it's coming out and I've become like anti-book somehow in the last several months. I'm like, okay, yeah, I wrote a book, but like, y'all need to quit being so precious about the concept of it's written in a book, so it's therefore more important than something someone says on a YouTube video or something someone says here or there or the other way. Because I'm like, we revere the faux ancientness of this practice. We revere the concept of this handed down magical tutelage. But it was handed down with words, with verbal words and actions and teaching and in person, like just telling you how I do something and showing you how I do something. What is YouTube? What is TikTok if not another way of passing on this sort of verbal lineage? You know, I mean, what is it if it's not just the next way of creating an oral tradition? Yeah, there is some bad information out there, but if you've read some books, there is some bad information in books too. Like, you know, that the defend occult books thing was going around, and it's a great thing. We should absolutely like support books and stuff, but like there's also this idea that just because it was in a book, it was like run by the witches council so that it's objectively factually accurate. And I'm like, well, that's not true.
That's true. You just weren't invited. No, totally. Well, and that was kind of one of the questions I had for you.
Yes.
Was okay, like you're a podcaster, you're a content creator on TikTok, my friend.
I hate that. I so hate
you are. So like given that you've operated in these other mediums, and this is something I wrestle with too, what's the point of another book? And what did you have in mind in writing yours, given that like we all know that there's kind of a problem inherent to this idea that all books are the ultimate authority?
Well, I think I wanted to play to it because we do in this community specifically have such a reverence for books. Other community, the fitness community, not so much a reverence for books. You know, we have a reverence for people that we, you know, if we want to see how to do a bench press, you want to watch someone do reading a book about a bench press, that at least in that community, they have gotten it in their heads that there's some stuff about certain kinds of practices, especially as they relate to physical things that you plan on putting, you know, very lifting heavy objects above your head, that simply reading about it isn't going to prepare you enough for. But in this community, I do understand and respect the fact that we do have such a reverence for books and we turn to books. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're a decentralized group. And so for want of sort of that book thing to tell us what to do, a book of instructions, you know, we turn to books. And I get that. I love that. I love books. I also do think that there are some things that I broach in the book that we've never really put down in black and white explicitly. And I wanted to put them down in black and white. I wanted them written down.
Put the rocks in your mouth.
Do what?
Do not put the rocks in your mouth.
Don't put them in you anywhere. Anywhere. You know, but I'm just like, if we don't say it out loud and often and where people are listening, what are we saying it? You know, are we saying it loudly enough? Are we saying it correctly? The fact that there are people that do shroud themselves in the security of our community, of people that legitimately hold certain beliefs, and they come into the community and they commit fraud, and they take your time and they take your money and they take your house or whatever. You know, there are bad actors, there's bad faith people in the community. And if you don't say that out loud, where people are going to listen and put it in black and white and stand behind it, there's just a certain level of did we say it? Are we truly preparing people for the realities? My book, I feel like there's a lot of, and I say it often in my book, there's a lot of books that will teach you the basics, but even in your book, you're pretty clear. If you're looking here to learn like if you're looking to have your hand held about the basics of spellcraft or the basics of certain things, like there's plenty of other books for that. This is a book about other things that are also important that you need to know. And
1 star.
yeah.
Why wasn't this book about giraffes? I was looking for a book about giraffes.
I'm trying really hard. So I'm not looking at my own reviews. I know they're out there.
You will.
All I know is that my publicity team is happy with them. But I am also a reader of books. And so I'm on Goodreads and Amazon and stuff. And the people on those websites, man, there's this weird scale, there's this weird like thing that people do with their reviews. Like they hoard these stars or something. I don't get it. Yeah. If it's a 1-star review, it tends to be something like what you said. You know, I wrote a book about gardening and somebody comes in and says, why wasn't this book about giraffes? It's a clearly superior subject, giraffes. Well, this is a book about gardens. Exactly. Where are the giraffes? 1 star. 5-star reviews, alternatively, tend to just be like, good job. That read the book. 5 stars.
Well, and that's something that I kind of wanted to talk about in mine was I think people need to stop reading book reviews.
Please stop.
I think book reviews are kind of a waste of time, everybody. So I have to tell you something. This is a confession.
Okay.
Inciting a riot, listeners. I don't like blurbs. I think blurbs are... Do readers read blurbs? Because I don't as a reader, and I never have. And I didn't realize that blurbs were so important until I became an author. And I consciously didn't get any blurbs for The Witch's Path just to see what would happen.
Really?
So I'm doing... Mm-hmm.
Wait, do you not have blurbs?
Nope, there's not a blurb. Do you want to see?
You know what? I haven't seen, I've seen the PDF. Oh, is that the ARC or is that the final copy?
This is the final. I just got it yesterday. This is the first time I've held my own book, everybody.
I'm allegedly getting mine next week.
Right. And I don't know, like, is this like a weird, terrible oversight or is it a flex? Like, what is happening here? And it wasn't,
it's a flex.
I wasn't super conscious of it. It actually has much more to do with like my introversion and my imposter syndrome, because I remember when Traditional Wicca came out and the acquisitions editor was like, okay, time to go get some blurbs. And I was like, I don't know anybody. Are you kidding? Why would anybody talk to me? And they were like, you need to reach out to Ray Buckland. You need to reach out to Deb Lip. And I'm like, those people are awesome and I'm scared of them. And they were like, do it. And then finally they did it for me because I was just like, I was like, no. And then this time, nobody asked me to do it. So I was like, so I just didn't.
And you got away with it.
I sure did. I guess, because this is the final. Like,
I was scared. I feel like I over asked people. I was mostly because I thought nobody was going to say yes. I thought nobody would. I know who I am. Like, I know who I am. I get me. I get what I do.
You're controversial, my friend.
I get it. And as such, I truly thought like nobody was gonna, I really thought this book was gonna not, I thought nobody wanted to read this book. I thought everybody couldn't wait to burn it. I thought it was gonna get just very largely ignored. And I was really shocked that I got the blurbs that I did. It was nice to see. I don't know what to do with that because I don't deal well with praise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot happening there because, like, on the one hand, folks will tell you like blurbs are really important for marketing. They're certainly useful. I mean, as a writer, it is such an honor knowing that people who I've read for years, who I really respect, are not just reading my books or acknowledging that I'm alive, but are actually enjoying them. Like, that's really mind-blowing. On the other hand, we started off kind of talking about publishing as an industry, and like blurbs are a marketing tool, and blurbs are like, there's a quid pro quo thing happening there too. Like, blurbs are currency amongst authors, and there's this
you blurb
attitude
my book, I blurb your book,
blurb yours.
I have you on my show. We agree never to talk shit about each other publicly from now. Like, there's the unspoken.
It's unspoken
rule that if you you blurbed my book, so if I ever do anything, I get a free pass on your podcast.
Well, kind of. And like people will insist that this doesn't happen. And I don't even think that it happens consciously a lot of the time, but we do have this attitude. I mean, a blurb theoretically is an endorsement.
Yeah.
So if I write you a blurb, I'm not even just saying, hey, this book is really great for beginners. I really like how
Mhm.
they tackled this complex issue. I also support all of the crazy things that they do on Facebook.